Zephaniah is one of the minor prophets. The minor prophets are those prophets, they're not like under 21, they're not short or anything like that. They just wrote brief prophecies. Their writings are fairly brief, unlike someone like Isaiah who has 60-some chapters. I think Zephaniah maybe has 3 chapters. Zephaniah is a fairly negative guy. This is probably as positive as Zephaniah can get in what we hear today. He's writing somewhere around 614, 630 BC, which would have been the same time as King Josiah. Now, King Josiah was a reformer. He was the hope of Israel. His father and grandfather were not very good kings at all. They were corrupt. His father Manasseh, in particular, was a fairly corrupt king. But Josiah is trying to put all that right. But Zephaniah, even though he lives in that time period, says, you know what? People have gone too far in their rejection of the covenant. Doesn't seem to be any way back. And we will be overwhelmed, and we will be punished. And this is right on the cusp of the Babylonian exile. They're about, maybe less than 100 years away from that. So, in our time, that's a significant period of time. When we're talking about that period of time, overall history, that's a pretty short period of time. And Zephaniah sees it. And he says, you need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared for the struggle. And you need to stay faithful. And in this one moment, Zephaniah is not one who is one to give very much hope, but in this one moment, he offers this little bit of hope that people can endure and people will be restored. The gospel passage is, it's a fairly common gospel passage where we tend to be aware of it. I'm pretty sure that it's peculiar to Matthew's gospel. And so we hear it makes sense, you say yes, but don't do it. Then there's a problem with that. You say no, but do it. There's some virtue in that. That's pretty straightforward, and that's basically the message. However, we rarely think about why we say our yes, but don't accomplish what we say we're going to do, don't do what we say we're going to do, or say no, we're not going to do that, and wind up doing it anyway. And there's something in that that's important for our reflection. Sometimes when we say yes to something that we believe, sometimes when we say yes to the teachings of Jesus Christ, we look at the cost of it to ourselves. And the cost we evaluate is too high for us, too much for us. In theory, we would like to do all those things, all those righteous things, all those good things, all those things that Jesus Christ asks us to do. In practice, even though we've said yes, the cost is too high. Sometimes we simply cannot take that step because we don't know how we're going to do it. You know, why did the son in this parable, why would he say yes and then not do it? You know, who knows? He comes up to the vineyard and he sees the vast work that has to be done. He's like, I can't do this. And he turns away. On the other hand, there are times when we look at what we're asked to do in terms of the teaching of Jesus Christ and we say, no, I can't do that. Can't do it. Don't know how I'm going to do it. And then we get into the moment where we're confronted with whatever the issue is that calls us to embrace the teaching of Jesus Christ. And we say, oh, what the heck, I'll give it a whack. I'll try to do that. Even though I'm not sure I can, even though I said I wouldn't, I'm here in the moment. And I will attempt to live as Jesus Christ has asked me to live. That's the predicament that we're faced with throughout our lives almost every single day. We are confronted with situations that challenge who we are and how we believe and how we act on what we believe. It's never just a simple yes or no. There's always some reflection attached to that yes or no. Jesus in this moment is confronting the elders and the chief priests, saying, you've said yes to God. You've said yes, that you're open to God's plan, that you're open to God's salvation, that you're open to God's teaching. And yet, in fact, the price to you has proven to be too high. It will unsettle your structures. It will disturb your personal life. And so even though you've said yes, in reality, you've acted no. There are tax collectors and prostitutes, the dregs of society, who lived out their no, I ain't doing all this stuff, pretty clearly, pretty demonstratively. They've lived out that no. And yet, when it came down to it, they heard the preaching of John the Baptist, they said, you know what? I think I need to change. I think I need to embrace this teaching. I will do the best I can in order to embrace this teaching. The yes and the no is not always as simple as a yes and no. It usually requires some more reflection. And we encounter those situations often in our lives.